Hi guys, I'm Lindsay Strand, and today on Sweet Talk I'm making a beautiful buttery treat. This is pear upside down cake, and it is the perfect treat for entertaining. So I'm starting with a butter and brown sugar mixture. This is 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter, and I'm heating this over low, and half a cup of light brown sugar. You could use dark brown sugar if you wanted more of a molasses flavor, but I like light brown sugar here, and it's what I have on hand. So I'm just going to melt this together, stirring until the sugar dissolves. You want to go low and slow here because you don't want to risk burning the sugar because you're going to have to start over again. I think an upside down cake can sometimes look a little bit intimidating because there's the fruit placing and the flipping and what if it doesn't turn out, but it actually is so easy when you see how this is done. I'm melting this in a 10-inch cast iron skillet. This is actually going to be baked straight in the skillet, which makes it super easy. You don't have extra dishes to wash. It kind of makes a rustic presentation when you flip it out of the skillet. But if you don't have this size cast iron on hand, you could definitely transfer this mixture into a 10-inch baking pan. It smells buttery and delicious. So my butter's just about melted. I'm gonna stir a little bit longer until the sugar is smooth. Just make sure that's coating the pan. I'm going to set this aside just to cool for a second. All right. So while that cools a little bit, I'm going to finish cutting my pears. I have 3 Anjou pears. It smells so good. I always loved pears growing up. There was something about how they were so crisp, but also really juicy. You can use any right but firm pear here. You want to make sure that they are a little bit firm so they don't totally fall apart in your cake. So now I'm going to cut this into slices. I'm just cutting the little cheeks off around the core. You can always snack on this little piece if you want or throw it in a compost bin. I know here at the Martha Kitchen, we put all of our food scraps into chicken feed and those go straight to her farm. Then I'm just cutting these into 1/4-inch slices. These have browned a little bit. If you're worried about that, you can totally squeeze some lemon juice over them, but since they are getting cooked, you're not going to notice any of that later. Now I'm going to arrange these in the bottom of my skillet. Just do a nice swirl pattern here. They can overlap slightly since they're so thin. And when I pour the batter in, the batter is going to bake up around the pears with this caramelly topping. It's going to be really beautiful. You just want to make sure that they're all cut evenly in size. Right, I think this looks about good. I've set my pears aside. I'm ready to make the batter. This is kind of like a chiffon or a sponge cake. So I'm going to start with my butter and 1 cup of granulated sugar. This is a half cup, so I'll put 2 of these in. And I'm gonna get this going until it's light and fluffy. While that's mixing, I'll do my dry. So this is 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. To that I'm adding 2 teaspoons of baking powder. 1, 2, and a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. Got a quick whisk. So we basically have 3 ways we're leavening this cake. We have our baking powder, we have the creaming butter, and then we're also going to whip the egg whites to give it some extra lift. That looks good. Just a quick scrape. Now I'm adding 2 egg yolks. So I'll put the whites into this bowl so that I can mix them later. Reserve the egg whites. All right, 1. These are at room temperature. Your room temperature whites will make it really easy for them to fluff up with the mixer. It's a technical term, fluff up. And then I'm adding 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Vanilla and pear are so wonderful together. You could also add a few other warming spices like cinnamon or ginger, that would be really nice. And mix this again. Now I'm going to alternate adding my dry and my whole milk. So I'll add half of the dry. Start mixing this on low. And while that's mixing, I like to add the milk. So this is 1/2 cup of whole milk, which is also at room temperature. If it's cold, it's gonna solidify the butter and then you won't have a nice, beautiful, soft dough. Turn this up for a second just to get it combined. Now we'll add the remaining dry ingredients. And again, mix this on low just until it's combined. And now we have the 2 reserved egg whites, and to that I'm adding a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. This just helps give it a little bit of added stability. Now I'm gonna whisk these up until they form stiff peaks. I'm doing this with a hand mixer. You could do it by hand. It might take you a little bit longer. Let's see where we're at, because they're still glossy, but they look like they're getting stiff, and that's pretty good. If you have an extra bowl for your stand mixer with a whisk attachment, you can totally do that instead, but every once in a while, I like to pull my hand mixer out and give it some use. Give it a little love. All right, so now I'm adding my whites into the batter. I like to just start with a little scoop of it to lighten it up. And you don't have to be too careful about folding this part in, because you're just lightening the thicker batter. And now I'll add the remaining portion in 2 sections. And now I'll be a little more gentle as I'm folding it in. I like to cut through the middle, scoop underneath. I can already see it starting to loosen up. It's gonna give us a really beautiful light texture. The remaining egg whites. So it might seem like a lot of steps, but it's so good. This cake is nice and light. It's definitely worth the extra steps for this delicious cake. All right, this looks beautiful and smooth. So now I'll bring my pears back over here. This isn't too hot anymore. Now I'll just gently spoon this over top of the pears. You want to do it gently so that you don't move them around too much. If you're rough with it, you definitely won't be left with that beautiful pattern that you started with. I try to distribute it around the pan so I don't have to do too much moving with the spatula. Right, just a little bit left in here. Definitely want to get every last drop. Right, now we'll use a little offset. Smooth it out. I don't want to move this around too much, but that looks good, just like that. So now this is going into a 350-degree oven until the top is nice and brown and a tester inserted into the center comes out clean. Look at this, you guys. I think it is so stunning and it smells amazing in here. It's buttery, it smells like brown sugar. I took it out of the oven, I ran a knife around the edge, and you want to flip it out immediately because if you wait, the sugar will harden and it'll get really sticky in the bottom of the pan. This looks so good. I think this is such a special dessert. You have the beautiful design of your pears and that caramelly topping. It looks absolutely delicious. Oh my gosh. So good. It's so delicate. It's unbelievably tender. The pears add just a hint of sweetness. I think this would be so good with a little bit of whipped cream or maybe ice cream on the side. I know all of your guests are going to love this and I hope you will too. Enjoy. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to like, subscribe. We have so many great fun videos on the Everyday Food channel.